What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got another NBA video and discussion video to kind of go over with you guys. A kind of discussion that I definitely didn't think I would be having, and it's a very interesting topic that's going around right now with a lot of reports on, who's going to take Lamelo Ball in the 2020 NBA draft. But a recent team that's kind of come out of nowhere in speculation has actually been the Toronto Raptors, a team that I never thought I'd be really seeing Lamelo Ball actually get really a lot of interest from, and yeah, Toronto Raptors seem to have, and the reason is obviously they're a contending team. They're the NBA champions of the 2019 season. Why would they need Lamelo Ball? It's a big question that I've kind of, got on my mind. I think a lot of people do as well. Of course, this is all, a big thing, but it's currently reported that the Raptors plan to trade up in the draft to acquire Lamelo Ball. This is being reported by Brandon Robinson. Now, at the time making this video, I would assume the Raptors would have a pick from like pick 20 to 26 or something like that. And obviously, there's no way Lamelo Ball is going to fall down that low. I mean, he's, at this point, I would be surprised. I would be very, very surprised if he wasn't a top 5 pick. Like, very, very surprised. And I would almost be, very surprised as well if he wasn't a top 3 pick. But I think with the team needs that a couple of teams has, I think he could fall out of that top 3. But in my opinion, right now, Lamelo Ball is probably and arguably the best player in the 2020 NBA draft. Obviously, I've been a Lamelo Ball fan for quite a bit now. I even got the pleasure of meeting him. It was actually really cool. But, getting all that biased opinion kind of out of the way, I think Lamelo Ball, and I think a lot of people will agree, is possibly the best player in this draft, or is definitely the most skilled player in this draft. And again, there is a lot of debate for that, but trading up to get Lamelo Ball, especially if you're a contending team like the Toronto Raptors, is definitely going to be a task that I don't know if they're going to be able to do, and it kind of brings up some questions on why would they trade up to get Lamelo Ball? What is the point and what is the reason of getting Lamelo Ball? And I think the main one is obviously that Toronto Raptors are potentially and could be looking at starting a rebuild in the future. Now, Toronto are currently, they're the 2nd seed in the East. They 46 and 18, but they lost 2 of their best players, 2 of their starting 5 players, Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, in the last free agency. They ended up re-signing Pascal Siakam, who is an absolute jet. Like, he's a very good player, obviously. Kyle Lowry is going to that older age, older part of his, 34 years old, older part of his career. Fred VanVleet is 26, going to be turning 27 in, less than a year or so. There's rumors he could potentially leave in free agency if Raptors have their sights on different stuff. Then you got Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, who could also potentially leave in free agency as well. And production has definitely gone down by those players. So it could be, going up to the question of, is this going to be the last season the Raptors are going to be able to contend? Because I would imagine they might potentially lose a player or two in free agency. They may have future plans to look, to try and sign Giannis, which we've heard that Giannis Antetokounmpo could be a player that is going to be on the Toronto Raptors plans. And if they keep their president, all that type of stuff, they will potentially look to go after him. That would mean that they would most likely lose Fred VanVleet because, yeah, it'd be a kind of a tricky situation to sign all of these players. But you got to also look at the fact that if they were able to sign Giannis, Kyle Lowry would be going on to a new contract at that time, and I think he would take a pay cut, obviously, to remain with the team. But yeah, players like Fred VanVleet may have to miss out. But other than that, let's just say Giannis wasn't in the equation. There are still a couple players that may leave. Who knows? A team like Detroit Pistons could offer Fred VanVleet a deal that he literally could not turn down. That's a big role player and starting 5 member that's going to be gone. Marc Gasol, who's a part of the starting 5 right now, has definitely regressed quite a bit, and I could see him regressing even more. That's even if he does stay. There's rumors that he could potentially look to go to Golden State. I don't think he would if he got offered another contract by Toronto, but I guess you never really know. Same thing with Serge Ibaka. There's rumors he could join a different team, but he's actually having a very good season this year. I don't know if he will regress. He's not even that old. He's literally 30 years old, so he's still in his prime right now. But yeah, a lot of things could potentially happen. They've got this really good young player in Pascal Siakam, who, like VanVleet, is only 26 years old. And if they wanted to start their rebuild now, I think that would be a very interesting thing. I think they should still try and contend for one season and see how everything goes with their president. If he leaves, then they're not getting Giannis. If he stays, there's a massive chance they could potentially land Giannis. But obviously, again, starting a rebuild, I guess, wouldn't be exactly the bad idea. I just don't think it's what they necessarily should be doing, and that's the only reason I could see for them to trade up for, like, you know, Lamelo Ball. Like, what team would actually trade away their pick for Toronto? There has to be a lot of pieces that Toronto would have to put into the trade to kind of make that happen. For example, I could see maybe the Illawarra Hawks trading it away if they got a lot of pieces and a lot of picks or something that they necessarily needed, because I don't really know if there's a perfect player besides Anthony Edwards in this draft really for them. I definitely don't think Lamelo Ball, I don't really think he would be the perfect player for the Hawks. They definitely could work around if they were able to get that high lottery pick. But again, I don't necessarily know if I would really like Lamelo Ball going to the Hawks. And there's just so many kind of situations like that as well. There's obviously the rumor as well that I'll talk about in a different video about New York will potentially look to try and trade up to get Lamelo if they do fall down in the draft. But yeah, it's just, I really don't know what Toronto were kind of looking at here. Like, my best mate, one of my best mates, is a massive Toronto fan. I literally asked him about this, and I was asking him, what does this mean for the Raptors? Are you guys going to start a rebuild and all that type of stuff? And he pretty much just said he doesn't think that would be the case, and he's got no idea why the Raptors would even attempt to do this. And obviously, he said as well, it literally doesn't really make any sense at all. But again, I think it'd be kind of interesting and cool to see maybe Lamelo in Toronto. Obviously, there's a couple other teams I would have preferred him to kind of go to, because I feel like he'd be in a couple people's shadows in, you know, the Toronto Raptors. But again, it could be an interesting prospect and something that I definitely think could be kind of looked at in the future with the Raptors. But yeah, they do have a very nice young core of, you know, Norman Powell, Pascal Siakam, and Fran VanVleet will all be heading into their prime. Same with OG Anunoby starting to get there as well. That's a really nice young core. If they want to add Lamelo to that, they could potentially try and do it. But there's going to be so many players they're going to have to try and get rid of to kind of make this happen. And I honestly don't think that there are going to be too much teams in really the top 5 that are going to be wanting to trade out. Like, let's look at the bottom 5 teams right now. Golden State, Cavaliers, Minnesota, the Hawks, and the Pistons. They are the bottom 5 teams. Now, obviously, that will most likely not be the draft order for the bottom 5 because, or for the first 5 picks, because the draft lottery always stuffs up a couple teams here and there. And, you know, it's a couple teams end up jumping in the top 5, and it's obviously very different. But let's just say we're going to look at those top 5 teams, or even look at maybe even the top 7. Let's include Chicago and New York as well. Golden State would trade, I definitely would think, would look to trade away their pick to kind of, you know, help with Steph Curry as well. But what players do the, you know, Toronto Raptors really have to give up if they were to get a top 5 pick from Golden State? Obviously, yes, maybe Ibaka, a sign and trade with Gasol, etc. But, you know, that pick is worth a lot more than those players at this point. So, again, that's not exactly the greatest thing. The Cavaliers won't want to trade their pick away. I don't think Minnesota will as well, unless it's, you know, for a player like Devin Booker. The Hawks, I think, could potentially, if they don't get Anthony Edwards. Then the Pistons, they would definitely not trade away their pick, I don't think. Same with the Knicks, and I think the Bulls definitely need to get a small forward such as Denny Avdija. So, again, I can't necessarily see them trading away their pick. You know, the Charlotte Hornets, actually, they could potentially trade away their pick because they don't need another guard. So, I guess that could potentially happen. The Washington Wizards as well, but there's been reports that they could also be rumored, you know, to look for LaMelo Ball, and they could potentially trade John Wall here and there as well. Obviously, that's a team that's currently being rumored. But yeah, there's just a lot of complications with this and a lot of ifs and buts with the Toronto Raptors. And honestly, you know, I do like the Toronto Raptors, but I just don't necessarily know if this is a smart move. And honestly, I would rather possibly see LaMelo Ball go to a team like, you know, the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Detroit Pistons or the New York Knicks, where he would be, you know, he would have his own team really, and he could work with some really nice role players here and there as well that are kind of build around him. Obviously, with Cleveland, I don't know necessarily what they do. I think Sexton would be that full-time 6-man, obviously, unless they would want to trade maybe Garland or Sexton. I don't even know, but I doubt they would trade Sexton. So you can kind of rule out the Cavaliers, but again, I think the Pistons and the Knicks would be really cool to kind of see LaMelo Ball. Even though they don't have the greatest reputation, I think it's time for LaMelo Ball to shine on a team like that. But again, I just don't necessarily know if Toronto Raptors are that team, especially considering they're the third best team right now, record-wise in the NBA. Why would they want to start their rebuild? a lot of ifs and buts, a lot of questions. I definitely would really like to know your thoughts and opinions on this all down below. So definitely don't forget to comment your thoughts and opinions on, the Toronto Raptors actually being interested in Lamelo Ball. Again, I definitely would really like to know your thoughts and opinions on this all down below. But also don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel, MIRL/Flowing channel. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I post, a lot of NBA and sports related content on this channel, such as videos like this. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to leave a like and just comment your thoughts and opinions. Again, I definitely would really like to know what you guys think about Toronto and Lamelo Ball. But also don't forget to check out my podcast as well if you haven't already. Again, a lot of sports content on there. Links for that will be in the description down below. But as I was saying, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.